Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new, welcome, when we get to more Emily and Reed content. Now, this video is going to be a little bit of a different one because we have so much to get through that it's just kind of hard to pick a place to start, because we have Rachel's accountability video, or more of a clarification video, because she doesn't really take any accountability, but then you also have like Jawbone, Studio Deeds, and then, you know, potentially other reaction channels that are currently in the whole Discord thing. And then there's also a conversation we need to have about, you know, where do we draw the line for privacy when it comes to people like Amber, but also reaction channels? And is it hypocritical to expect privacy for people like us who are reaction channels while also discussing stuff that is technically private? It's not in the public eye, but we have people exposing it and talking about it to reaction channels, so therefore it's no longer private. Like, where exactly we draw the line for privacy when it comes to Amber, but also us as reaction channels, because we are now public figures. And then there's also, you know, the idea of morals we have to talk about when it comes to the reaction channels too. Like, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be covered. So I'll kind of try to figure a place, and we'll just start the video now before I start rambling too long, shall we?
The first thing I need to do is just mention my previous video, which was a glitter and lasers reaction. When I filmed that, all of this stuff that's happened over the last 24 hours-ish hadn't happened yet. So that's why I didn't address it in that video. And I absolutely acknowledge that it was quite tone deaf to post that video and then not say anything, because it looked like I was trying to move along and not address the stuff, which is not what's happening. So I'm sorry to all of my audience who saw that video and was like, what the fuck, why are you not addressing this? That's what happened there, but I am addressing it now. So here we go.
Honestly, Rachel, mate, if I was you, I would not have uploaded this video. It comes off as incredibly arrogant and just flat out tone deaf, and you think explaining it somehow is going to make it sound better, but it really doesn't. And you can try to explain or clarify as much as you want, but the intent is still the same. You emotionally manipulated someone in order to get tea out of them, which it's not tea, it's DV stories, which the fact that you can even view it that way says a lot about you in the first place. But to go on then to say that you want to be a champion or a safe space for the other victims and be able to allow them to speak out, the majority of them already spoke out. They already said what they wanted to say, and they've moved on, and they don't want to deal with the situation anymore. You're not doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it because you can monetize it and get money and popularity out of it. Now that the dynamic has shifted and you're now being seen in a different light, suddenly this entire situation is starting to go too far. But you have no problem using private information that people don't want aired out to still try and get more money and views. And I'm not saying this to defend Emily by any means, because I don't really think she's all that defendable. I think after a certain point, it kind of just lost all sincerity of being a victim to me. Like, she doesn't have any real pressure to continue to date Amber or to speak to reaction channels, but she keeps doing so, hoping to get some sort of gain out of it, whether it's, you know, a little bit of attention or maybe a little bit of money. Who knows, who cares? Ultimately, it doesn't really matter because it isn't worth it. And it is surprising to me that so many people are willing to line up and be the next person in Amber's DMs, because at this point in time, like, Amber is large enough for people to know who she is, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. Like, a simple Google search, which if you have the intention of dating someone, especially someone who is a YouTuber, you would want to Google who they are, like, at least know a little bit about them before you get into a relationship. And Amber is not someone who can really keep the mask on for long, so if you can ignore the red flags long enough to want to get in a relationship with her, it kind of, it makes me wonder why. Like, why is that happening? Because to most people, that shit ain't worth it. Like, it really isn't. So it kind of just makes me side-eye anyone who wants to get in a relationship with her.
So my goal in this video is to basically just tell you everything I can possibly tell you, get it all out so you know exactly what there is to know, and then you can think about it and talk about it amongst your, amongst yourselves in your communities and such, and everybody will know what happened, because that's the goal, right?
You really can feel the sincerity in the way that she speaks. Like, yeah, I'm gonna put all the information out there and let you guys decide on how you should view me. Thanks, Rachel. Like, we appreciate your permission, but it's kind of been exposed already how you are as a person, so you're not really gonna give us any new information. Like, we get it.
The next thing we need to talk about is the Discord. So we've had loads and loads of messages and people talking about this Discord. So it's absolutely true. There was a private Discord, which consisted of a few people, and all of us trusted each other very well, and we were friends, and we were all talking about Girl World related stuff. There was all kinds of stuff in that Discord, some very interesting, juicy tea, which still hasn't come out yet. Just to be clear, so for everyone who's been wondering, I did not share everything I got at all. And some of that stuff went in that Discord.
This part of the video right here was kind of weird to me. It's like, what was this video intending to do? And like, why were you bragging about having information that went into the Discord that you didn't put into the videos? Like, why? Why is that relevant to what's going on right now?
That Discord was a place where we chatted like mates. I'm sure you've all got mates. You run your mouth with your mates in a way that you wouldn't do on your public YouTube channel. But of course, it got out, and everything that you guys have seen has been seen.
Honestly, not really, because I have a private Discord with my friends, and the type of humor we have in there is the same type of humor we have on my gaming channel, where we film a lot of content together. Like, the only thing that I would say would probably be like a little bit toned down, so that way our humor isn't overtly adult themed. So that way it's a little bit just more pulled back. Same sense of humor, just not as in your face about it. And that being said, the main reason why so many people disagreed with how you were acting in those messages was because you're being very rude and just superficial about the criticisms that you had towards other reaction channels. And there's a difference between, you know, criticizing Amber or Foodie or Glitters and Lasers or anyone in Girl World in comparison to you just straight up being a mean girl towards reaction channels because you don't like someone's voice or how they have commentary.
So, of course, as you guys all know, because you've all seen, somebody who was in that Discord has no fucking backbone, didn't want to tell me that they disagreed with my takes, and instead screenshotted a load of the Discord and sent those screenshots out. They then sent all of those screenshots to someone who then shared some of that stuff.
Rachel mentioning that does make me wonder, would she have changed her mind on how her behavior was in said Discord if someone had done that? Because I really don't think she would have. A lot of people, when they are in private conversations with their friends and they're egging each other on, they're having a bit of fun, they're making jokes, you know, a little bit of mean girl energy is currently going around. If someone comes in as a party pooper and is like, hey, you know, what you're saying and doing is wrong, most likely they're not going to self-reflect. They're going to heckle that person. They're going to insult that person, just like how she did. Oh, spineless fucking loser who, you know, didn't have a backbone. That's the type of energy that she has in public. What is she going to do in private? If she thinks the messages weren't going to get out, it's going to probably be far worse.
That person did not blur the face and name of some of the individuals in those screenshots who are not public figures, which I'm really angry about, because some of those people have all kinds of personal stuff going on in their lives. They don't want their faces and names to be made public, and yet they were. It takes 2 seconds to blur somebody's face in a screenshot. So I think that's really fucking poor, to be honest, if I'm being honest about it. But anyway, that's, you know, whatever, that happened. So the screenshots got out.
Now, I do agree with Rachel when she says that public figures are different from non-public figures, and those people should have their privacy respected. That being said, when you enter a space that is part of Girl World, knowing full well that you are entering that space, you don't really have a right to privacy anymore. And if you're actively engaging, whether it's in a group chat or on a one-on-one with reaction channels, and those comments or those messages or whatever is leaked, you don't really have a right to complain because you're engaging in said behavior that also exposes other people too. Now, those people are public figures and what they do should be held accountable, but you also engaging in said behavior can also be held accountable too. You're not free from criticism just because you're not a public figure. But for me personally, if I knew those people weren't public figures, I would blur their names and faces too, because I kind of think it's irrelevant to have them on the channel. Like, yes, they can be held accountable for engaging in said behavior, but ultimately, it's up to them. I don't really give a shit. I'm also focusing on the reaction channels and on Amber and the girls in Girl World. That's where my mindset is at. Random people that just are shit-talking in Discord, I don't care.
But basically, that Discord was a bunch of people who I thought of as friends, mates, fellow creators, who would chat and like spitball and bounce ideas off each other A lot of sarcasm and stupidity was said in that chat. I am going to cover all that stuff. This is not me like sweeping it under the rug and saying a lot of stuff was said. I'm going to talk about what I said. Of course, we all knew there was a chance that it might end up being made public. Nobody thought that that would actually happen, but it did happen. So here we are.
It's comments like this that make me wonder if Rachel even fully understands why so many people are upset with her to the degree that they're upset with her with. It's not just about the Discord. It's not just about your attitude. It's not just about your messages or how you're talking about the other reaction channels behind their backs. It's about you also forming a pattern with your audience of lying and omitting certain key details until you've been exposed, and then you want to be fully transparent. That is very Amber Lynn behavior. You're also not taking full accountability and retroactively changing the argument or trying to clarify so that way you don't have to take full accountability for the things that you're saying and doing. That's very Amber. Like, you are giving Amber Lynn energy right now.
One of the main things I need to address is the money. So a bunch of screenshots were shared, and it's me being very fucking cocky about how much money I've made doing Girl World content.
The required amount of subscribers in order to monetize my content. I personally don't know if I will ever have memberships, but I will monetize my content if and when I can potentially do that. I don't really see a problem with it because it's not really that big of a deal. If you guys choose to support my content by watching the ads and allowing me to get money off of that, that'd be awesome. I would appreciate that. But I don't think it's ever going to be something where I would want to fish for information like Rachel is doing. I think that's too much into the drama, and someone could potentially, end up getting hurt or burnt from that. So I'm not going to be going that far into the bullshit. But if that's Rachel's prerogative, that's up to her. I don't think it's a good idea, but you do you, sis.
That one of the main things that people have had a problem with is me making this joke about wiping my tears with banknotes. In a minute, you'll see I go into a bit more detail about it, but this is it here. So you can see Jawbone, who is a public person, is in the Discord, and he says something about how he's watching Geordie, and Geordie is saying he thinks me offering to pay for receipts is a nothing burger, basically.
I do have to disagree with Geordie on this one because I personally think it's more than just a nothing burger. I think that if you are actively paying someone like Emily for information, your audience should know about it. And if they want to remove support, that is completely up to them. That is a justifiable reason for them to remove their support. Not saying that anyone needs a justifiable reason to remove your support because we're not entitled to anyone's support. But if that is enough for you to say, all right, I'm done with this reaction channel, then it's not you being like, it's not something that you're overreacting to. That is a perfectly logical reason to say, hey, she's giving money to someone that I don't support, so therefore I can't support her anymore. That is perfectly fine. And Rachel herself knew this. She knew that if she told her audience about how she was getting the information, that people were going to be upset. That's why she decided to omit it in the first place. And it was only after that she was going to be exposed, or she thought she was going to be exposed, that she decided to step in and expose herself. That really shows you her type of mindset, that as long as people don't know, then it doesn't really exist, and it doesn't really matter. It does. Your audience wants transparency, and if you're going to hide it from them, then they can't trust you.
And then I say, love that from Geordie. And then Jawbone says, so you're not really being publicly hung, drawn and quartered. Rest easy, basically. And I say, if Geordie says it's all right, then I'm off the hook. I'll wipe my tears with banknotes. So that is what I said about that. That's the context of all of that. Obviously, from this one screenshot, it's not immediately clear, but the vibe that Jawbone and I have, I don't know if you guys have seen any of Jawbone's content, but he's a joker. He says things tongue-in-cheek to take the piss, and that is how I spoke back to him in this Discord. Of course, I felt I was among friends. So when I made that comment, I was not talking about Beck. Beck was not relevant to the conversation. People are trying to make it sound like somebody said to me, oh, are you going to give the money to Beck? And I said, oh no, I'd rather wipe my tears with banknotes or some sort of bullshit. That is not what happened. The part of the conversation that was relating to Beck was over an hour prior, which I'm going to show you in a second, and this banknote comment had absolutely nothing to do with Beck. I was talking about Geordie, who is also somebody who takes Girl World lightly and makes lots of jokes, particularly about being paid lots of money by his viewers on their birthday and things like that. So the context around me saying this line was completely nothing to do with Beck. I understand the timing of it. comes across as extremely insensitive, because about an hour prior I was deciding what to do with the money. But in a second I'll show you that screenshot and it will make a lot more sense as well, because you'll see that I say at the end of that screenshot, I'll think about it, which I did then go on to do, and obviously I changed my mind. I'll explain a bit more about the Beck stuff and the money in a second. I just really wanted to nip this like vicious lie in the bud that when I made this joke about wiping my tears with banknotes, it had absolutely nothing to do with Beck, whose situation I empathise with so very seriously. They're going through something really shitty, and it's just fundamentally untrue that this comment from me had anything to do with Beck in any way.
Alright, so I can understand her wanting to separate those two conversations if they have nothing to do with each other, especially if someone is trying to make it sound like, you know, she was saying that in relation to Beck. But at the same time, it's still very bad, especially with what Beck is going through. Even if it has nothing to do in relation to Beck, bragging about that is still pretty tone deaf. And on top of that, you were saying this as if you were doing it for the victims of Amber Lynn, but you weren't. You were doing it for yourself. You were doing it for money, for attention, for more subscribers. And to an extent, that's okay. But using the angle of, well, I'm doing it for the victims is fucked up. It really is. And then to go on and say that you don't really want to give the money to Beck, or you don't know if you want to give the money to Beck because you can donate it to a DV charity and then get it off as a tax deductible, then that really shows that you were only doing it for the money and you had no real intentions of even giving it to charity. You just want to do it to appease your audience because it makes you look better in this situation.
Giving the money to Beck doesn't feel right. I'm not sure what to do about it. If I give it to a charity, I can write it off on my taxes. And it's absolutely true. I did say that stuff. So when I made my community post, all those top comments were people saying, give the money to Beck, give the money to Beck. And I was like, that feels icky, because if I'm taking money that I got by sharing somebody else's DV story and then I give it to Beck, that just felt strange to me. It made me feel uncomfortable. I'm not going to fucking lie about that. At first, this is on the 23rd of October when I was having this conversation, I was like, is Beck even going to want that money? Is that going to make Beck feel uncomfortable? Do I actually want to give money from one ex to a different ex? It all just felt a bit icky. I was very conscious. I was in the mud. And I was like, is this just flinging further mud? Just putting myself more into the situation? And I didn't want to do it. I felt really uncomfortable.
Right, so you felt uncomfortable with doing something positive with the money, but you're perfectly fine with making money in the first place by flirting with someone who is a victim of DV and narcissistic abuse in order to get money in the first place from it. So you don't want to give money, or at least half the money that you made, to an ex who dealt with so much and is currently dealing with so much, but you're perfectly fine with keeping the other half of the money that you made on the video for yourself. That makes sense.
You can see on the right hand side there, that's the conversation I was having, and this is the part of the Discord where I was discussing what to do. Should I give it to Beck? Should I give it to a charity? And I explain here that I feel uncomfortable, and you can see there's a message where I say it feels cleaner to give it to charity. That's what I'm referring to there. It just felt like I was getting even more entangled by giving the money to Beck. This is before I had gone through the thought process and changed my mind. Just to be really clear, the date is very visible on the screenshot. You can see this is prior to me making the video that I made later, where I told everyone, oh no, I've actually made the decision, and in a minute I'll tell you more about how I came to that decision. And if you look at the bottom of this screenshot here, you can see the last message is me saying I'll think about it, which I absolutely did go on to do, because obviously I changed my mind. You can also see the timestamp on this screenshot says 7:30, so this is like an hour before the comment about wiping my tears with banknotes, and by the time we got to that part of the conversation, the topic had completely changed and was not about Beck whatsoever. Just to make it very clear to everyone, although these were on the same Discord, the two messages were completely unrelated.
Honestly, I don't really know about that. Like, reading the messages as they are right now, it just seems like she has zero intention of doing so, and that the only reason she did was because she knew that it was going to be a shit show. So if the only way to really appease her audience was to give the money to Beck, it was something that she felt like, or at least to me, it feels like she was forced. Like, that's how the messages sound. Especially like the last one of, you know, I'll think about it. It comes off as very just, I don't want to, but I know that I have to. Or at least that's the feeling that I'm getting. And the second last one is just fucked up. But there is something satisfying and petty about giving it to Beck. Like, yeah, I don't really want to do it, but if I do, it's only because my audience is forcing me, but at least I get some satisfaction out of knowing that it will piss Amber and Emily off.
I was like, I don't know if Beck's even going to want it. Amber owes Beck the inheritance money, and I think Amber needs to pay Beck back. That was my knee-jerk gut reaction when that all first happened. I was like, this feels a little bit strange to me, okay?
I don't know about anyone else, but that sounds like a very childlike mentality that she has. Like, oh, well, I don't want to give the money to Beck, or at least I don't think it's a good idea to give the money to Beck. If Beck needs money, Amber should be the one to pay her back. We're not talking about Amber right now. We're talking about you and the things that you did wrong. Why is Amber in the conversation? She's not part of this right now. Let's focus on you and what you did wrong.
But then I reread my community post, I reread all of you guys' comments, and I was like, no, it actually does make sense for me to give this money to Beck. And the reason that it made sense, and this is why I changed my mind, and this is the main reason I changed my mind, somebody said, you mentioned Beck as one of your reasons for offering Emily money in the first place. And that is why you should give it to Beck, because you literally mention Beck in this post. And I was like, you're totally right, I do. In the post, and when I made this initial offer to Emily about the finance video, I say to her, this will be so fucking good because it will help other exes who've been screwed over financially by Amber, because like Beck, for example, who is owed the inheritance money back. So my impetus for offering Emily this money was so that she would make the finance video with me, send me all of the proof of Amber being a tight ass and all the other stuff, which I never actually got. But the point is that my goal was to kind of help the other exes and be like, guys, look, Beck's not the only one she owes money to. That was my goal, right?
I mean, realistically, if you really wanted to do that to help the exes of Amber Lynn and get their money back, or at least, you know, part of the money that they lost while they were with her, why not just give up your share of the video? Like, if you're going to give half the money to Emily, why not give your share of the video up to her exes like Beck? If you really wanted to do that. Like, if you really wanted to help them out, then I think you can miss one paycheck from one video. It's not like you're not going to get money elsewhere because you're going to be making plenty of other videos. You're going to get plenty of money. I don't think it's going to take like such a massive hit to your bank account, especially if you're out here bragging about how much you're making.
So when I read this comment, I was like, oh, yeah, that was what I was trying to do. That was the point of it. And it made me realise, oh yeah, of course I should give the money to Beck. And then Beck also made a further community post where they talk about their surgery and such. And I was like, oh yeah, ding, 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 light bulb moment. It makes complete perfect sense to give this money to Beck. So I changed my mind and I decided, oh yeah, of course I'll give it to Beck. That makes perfect sense. So in that screenshot that you've seen where I'm saying, oh, it feels kind of icky, I'm not sure about doing that, I don't think I want to, and also I mentioned the tax benefit of it all, that was before I had gone through that thought process. So yeah, there is a screenshot out there of me saying, I don't know if I'm going to give this money to Beck, it feels wrong, because that is how I felt at one point.
Rachel really is trying to make it sound like that she came to this conclusion after Beck posted they needed help after their surgery, when in reality, Beck has made a bunch of posts of needing help because shit keeps happening to them. Like, it started off with them needing help with a car because their car ended up breaking down, and then that car ended up in a ditch after it got fixed. And then it was them finding out that their partner is a predator and they have supposedly split up now and they're no longer together. And then after that, needing surgery, and then finding out they had thyroid cancer. I think it was thyroid cancer. Correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. And all these other things that are currently happening. So it's not just one post recently. I'm pretty sure over the past 3 or 4 months, Becca's probably posted like 6-7 times that they need help because shit keeps happening. So to say that you had like this aha light bulb moment, it was the perfect timing, that's what made me, realize Becca needed the money, is a bunch of bullshit.
And so the timing of all of this has been like purposefully twisted by this individual to try and make me look as bad as possible, when actually what happened was not like this at all. For example, this person's made this comment where they say Beck shares detailed updates about their devastating medical and financial situation. Rachel blames Beck for making a deal to pay thousands to an active death feeder who's publicly gifting food to dying addicts, and then implies that it'd be icky and unethical. So the timing of what happened there is completely wrong. So Beck made their community post 5 days ago, and I made those comments in the Discord on the 23rd of October, which was way before Beck had given this update. I also did not blame Beck whatsoever. I said that Beck could benefit from everybody knowing that Amber also abused financially another ex, which is absolutely true. But obviously when you lay it out like this, it sounds like that would be really awful if that's what happened, but that's absolutely not what happened. Those comments that you can see me make in the Discord where I'm not sure what to do were made before Beck made their post on their community tab, just to be really fucking clear about what actually happened here.
Alright, so I can understand how I wanted to clarify that, but it doesn't really change all that much to me because Beck has made multiple posts before, and she did state that Beck was part of the reason why she wanted to make the video in the first place. So for you to get upset about people criticizing you for having a thought process to got to the point where you need to have a light bulb moment and give the money over to Beck is kind of hypocritical, because you used Beck as the original, inspiration for wanting to do the video in the first place. It's only natural people are going to want you to give the money to Beck.
So I made that decision, and I had further conversations in that same Discord where I said, guys, I think this is what I'm going to do. But those screenshots weren't shown. So it's just kind of funny to me that only bits that make me look really bad have been shown. There was all these parts of the Discord where you can see me being like, oh, I don't know what to do. Is this the right thing? I don't want to be a dick. So there was loads of that which never got shown. Only little bits that make me look really fucking bad were shown, with no fucking context. So anyway.
Although I do agree that only showing one side of the conversation to make someone look bad is a shitty thing to do, I don't think there's going to be enough context in order to justify your behavior, because it's pretty obvious from the get-go that you really don't give a shit. And even if that added context might sway some people, the large majority have already spoken. They don't agree with how you acted. They don't like how you acted. And even with that context, a lot of people are still not going to be on your side. So, shitty thing to do, but I don't think it changes all that much. And I think it's really good to not live in an echo chamber and show all sides. So, if there was something that could add context to sway the majority of people, and that was taken out to make her look bad, shame on that person. But I think the context wasn't going to change much.
We've done the Discord, and now we're going to get into some of the other things. So number one is the flirting. Screenshots have been shared that show me saying that I flirted with Emily to get the tea. My goal is to analyse the girls the best way I possibly can. So in order to do that, I want to see the proof, and I'm not going to lie about that. I absolutely do. And it is completely true that during my texting with Emily, I was much kinder to her than I might have otherwise been. I was much nicer. I was much more jokey. I sent some winky face. Actually, I don't even know if I sent winky faces, but I definitely was somewhat more amenable to her than I could have been, because I wanted her to feel comfortable with me and give me all of the proof, right? I don't think anybody is going to send somebody else like 150 screenshots, videos, various other stuff without you making them feel comfortable. So I describe that as flirting in the Discord, and I probably stand by that. I definitely did flirt with her a little bit. I don't give a fuck about that. I think flirting so that you can make more money is totally normal. People do it when they're bartenders, burlesque dancers, so many different professions. You'll be a bit nicer than you want to be to somebody because you're trying to get ahead in your career.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop you right there, because I hard disagree with what you're trying to argue right now. Like, those two things are very distinctly different from one another. There is a difference between being nice and listening to someone and building a rapport over time by actively expressing interest in what they went through and building a friendship out of that. Or not even a friendship, just building a good rapport out of that. And you actively flirting with the death feeder about their abuse story from their narcissistic girlfriend in order to monetize it because you're the only one who has that information. Like, those are just so massively different from one another. And you can argue as much as you want about being justified in your behavior because other people do it too in their own careers, but it doesn't really make all that much sense, because what you're trying to argue, again, are two very different things. One is a bartender who's flirting with a customer to get a bigger tip. Often they usually do it to people who are single or people who are looking to have a little bit of fun on a girl's night out or a guy's night out, and they just want to have, like, just a potential chance of getting a bigger tip. That is okay. That's not really all that much of a big deal. But Rachel is fully admitting to flirting with someone who, again, is a death feeder, but also just got out of a DV relationship with a narcissistic abuser. Very distinct, different situations. And the fact that you can try comparing those two just says everything that I need to know about you. And on top of that, Rachel's also in a relationship. And I know every relationship is different and they each have their own individual rules. Some people are perfectly fine with their partners flirting with other people. But even if my partner was okay with me flirting with other people, I wouldn't do it just on my own moral standing alone, because I don't want to disrespect my partner. Even if they're okay with that, flirting with other people is a sign of disrespect, and I would not do that even if they're okay with that.
This is one thing that I'm not gonna kind of recant on, because I think that flirting with somebody is literally no big deal. I think that people having a huge problem with me flirting with somebody a tiny bit to get more information is like kind of weird. Like, why do you care who I flirted with? Now I understand the argument is that she's a death feeder and that's why I shouldn't have flirted with her. If you saw this alleged flirting, you'd be like, oh, because it was literally nothing. I just personally think that it's no big deal. If you feel that it's a huge deal, that's cool. That's your opinion, and you're genuinely within your rights to have that. And I support you having a different opinion from me, right? Because that's what life is all about. I'm not trying to be in an echo chamber, but I just want to say my view on my own actions in that situation is that me flirting with somebody to get more tea is really no big deal, and it happens in a multitude of jobs. And if you think it doesn't, you're objectively wrong.
Not only is she downplaying it, she's also trying to justify it by saying other people do it too, which makes me think that it's not just a couple winky faces and a couple hee ha-has. There was probably a lot more to go with that. So I'm willing to bet if Emily wanted to release those messages, Rachel would probably be some big shit, probably in the doghouse too if her partner saw them.
People have said all kinds of wild and hilarious things about me and Emily falling in love. I think a lot of that was said in Amber's live, which I'm going to react to probably in my next video. But it's absolutely not true. I have a hard line that I'm not talking about my girlfriend. That is nobody's business. I do not choose to monetize information about my girlfriend or make my girlfriend public. So it is a hard line for me that I will not be discussing my girlfriend, my relationship. But what I will say is that this speculation that Emily and I fell in love or anything like that is absolutely laughable. And that is not what happened. But when I react to Amber's live, I think I'll talk more about that then, because I think she's the one who tried to kind of peddle that narrative. So we'll talk about that later.
Now, personally, I don't mind if she doesn't want to talk about her girlfriend or her relationship. That's fine. No skin off my nose. I really don't care. That being said, we're not really talking about your relationship or your girlfriend. We're talking about you and your actions and you potentially flirting, or what you just admitted that you were flirting with Emily. So we don't have to talk about those two things. We're talking about that one thing you were doing in those DMs that I would like to really... Actually, no, I don't want to see. Depending on how bad it is, I probably don't want to see those messages.
In this Discord, I shared screenshots of the conversation between myself and Emily where I tell her that I'm not going to be giving her the money. Someone has threatened to share these screenshots and they're getting all high and mighty and excited that they've got these screenshots, so I'm going to show them to you instead, and then that person can talk about them if they want to, just like every other reactor is maybe going to. I personally think it's quite fucking boring. I'm going to show you them and you can do with them what you will. So here they are.
Again, Rachel is being very dismissive about this entire situation. Like, if none of this is that big of a deal and you think that people are just over-exaggerating, why even make the video in the first place? Obviously, it does matter. You're just trying to say that it doesn't matter and that it's not that big of a deal because you don't want people to overreact in your eyes, which, honestly, a lot of people are reacting justifiably annoyed, and rightfully so.
I've just realised whilst editing that there are 2 screenshots which I somehow didn't cover in the video, so I'm just going to pop them here for you now. So this is the part of the conversation where I tell Emily that I'm not going to be giving her the money, basically. So this is the start of the conversation. I didn't unfollow you, I've been following you for over a year. I understand why you feel frustrated, but my worry is that I cannot trust that you won't go back and talk to Amber, because you've done that before and I will look like a total mug for having defended you. And that's what I say I've showed your side of the story to basically everyone in Gurl, which has worked to your benefit. You threatened to go to reaction channels when you spoke with Amber, and now you've done it. That was another dig from me, because I saw in the screenshots, I kind of realised in the screenshots, she literally threatens Amber by saying, oh, I'm going to go to reaction channels. And I was like, oh, lol, that's exactly what she did. And then I say, and it has benefited you by getting your proof out there, which is what you wanted. I've put my reputation on the line to get the truth out because I wanted to support a DV victim. This has always been about getting the truth out via proof. I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on the side of proving what really happened. That's what I've always said. And then Emily says, I understand. I know you don't trust my word, but I'm not going back to Amber. I'm not sure who is telling you I'm talking to her, but clearly they're trying to stir the pot. That wasn't the case. There was absolutely proof that they were talking. And then obviously Amber, I think Amber had already done this at this point. She deleted her videos about Emily and posted that community post. So it was very obvious the 2 of them were talking again. And I was like, girl, I've literally made all these videos sharing your side of the story, and I've believed you when you've told me that you're this awful victim of this terrible abuse, and now here you are back in bed with Amber.
And this right here is the main reason why I and plenty of other reaction channels say enjoy the shit show for what it is, but do not engage. Stay the hell out of it.
There's this screenshot. This is the first one. I think there's 9 of them, so we'll get through them. They are honestly boring, but we'll talk about it. So here's the conversation. We'll start here. So Emily told me that she is not the one who's making the privacy complaints. That's what she said, and then this is my response, and this is where we are. So I say, no worries. I think you should make a public statement on your own platform to inform people that it wasn't you who made the privacy complaints. I think our communications have skewed my judgment and impartiality towards the situation, and I think it's best we stop speaking. And that's absolutely true. She was telling me all kinds of stuff about herself, about Amber, and it was getting very difficult to tell what was true and what wasn't true. And having her in my ear whilst I was trying to make content for you guys was just weird, and it felt uncomfortable. And when I say that it skewed my judgment and impartiality, what I meant was the fact that I wanted more tea from her meant that I couldn't be as critical about her as I wanted to, as I've already told you guys. So that's what I mean when I say that. And I say it's best we stop speaking. By the way, just to be clear, this is the last conversation Emily and I ever had. You're going to get up to and including the end of the conversation.
Honestly, I don't know. Like, the more that she downplays this situation, the more that I believe that there is more than she leads on. Like, I think there was more than just a little bit of harmless flirting. But that's just my opinion. That's just my assumption. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just getting a feeling. And a lot of the times when I get those feelings, I'm not wrong. So, remains to be seen, I guess.
So I say, while I understand this decision will be disappointing to you, I can't in good faith pay you for the video where I shared your story, because I heavily suspect that you had other motives for speaking to me besides getting your story out as a DV victim. I feel I've been a pawn in a bigger game between you and Amber, and that my good intentions have been somewhat used. That's the reasoning that I gave her. I thought I was sharing her story, but actually that's not really what was going on. She was using me and my channel and my angle to try and attack Amber. She didn't actually want to get her story out, clearly, because she was still in fucking cahoots with Amber, which just pissed me off, because I was like, don't talk to me about how you're such a victim and you feel so awful and then run back and have a chin wag with the person who did it to you. The whole thing just felt strange.
Rachel, let's not pretend like you're doing this out of the kindness of your own heart. You're getting paid for this too. You were also down in the muck. You're enjoying the bullshit. So don't pretend like you're holier than they are, because you're all covered in shit.
So I say, in light of the recent developments, I know it would be a disappointment to my audience, and I can't be sure confirmation of any payment wouldn't end up getting back to Amber and then be used against me. I'm pleased we were able to show the proof to the audience, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to make a payment to you. Instead, I will make a donation to a violence charity. I have to safeguard my integrity with my audience. This is something I'm not willing to risk. Thank you for understanding, and I wish you all the best. Now that obviously, it makes me look like a total idiot, because I'm saying here that I want to safeguard my integrity with my audience, and that's absolutely true. I knew that if you guys knew that I had paid Emily for this, that you would be so angry with me. There was no way I was going to pay her.
For future reference, Rachel, here's a little bit of advice that you can use. If you have to hide something from your audience in order to safeguard your integrity with them, don't do it. Just don't do it in the first place, because not being transparent with your audience is the very reason why you got exposed. If you don't do expose-worthy shit, you won't be exposed. So just don't do it in the future. Simple.
And then Emily says, then I want the video taken down because it's done nothing but cause me problems. I'm not going to make a statement. I'm not posting anything to social media. I'm being harassed. People are calling my family. Everyone is talking about me, about reporting me now because Hector Kana posted about it. And now you're not staying true to your word. How would you like if someone did that to you? I feel like I've been used and exploited. I'm not talking to Amber. This is just your excuse to go back on your word. Unbelievable. So that she says she's being harassed and she wants the video taken down. When I posted the video, Emily was pleased with it. She was completely fine with the video when she thought she was being paid, and then when she realised she wasn't going to get paid, suddenly she blamed the video for her being harassed, which is completely unfair. She says, you say you're sharing a victim's story, then turn around and not believe me after you make money off me, all while you're worried about your reputation. Come on, Rachel. She had no problem with anybody making any money, all the while she thought she was getting some of it. As soon as I said, sorry, it's not going to you, she clearly feels that she's been screwed over.
She feels screwed over because you did screw her over. Like, objectively, this isn't, like, her feeling a certain type of way. That is exactly what happened. And I don't want to defend Emily by any means because I don't like her, but that's what happened. You made a video using information with a promise that you're going to pay her, and instead of paying her because your audience found out and got pissed off, rightfully so, because you should not have made that promise in the first place, you then decided to go back on your promise, keep money, and then afterwards donate it to someone else, which that was not the initial promise. You were supposed to give it to her, or at least half the money to her. That was your fault.
And you guys know what happened. And I say, as stated prior, I feel a similar way. My intention was to share your story, which has been achieved. You receiving a payment from me will have no tangible effect to your complaints above, which I sympathise with, talking about her being harassed or whatever. The purpose of this was for you to clear up information and share your story, not to make a profit. I do not in any way support you being harassed, doxxed, or having your family contacted. I have not contributed towards or encouraged this behaviour. A donation of half the total AdSense of this video, less 19% for taxes, will be made to a domestic violence charity. I will not benefit financially from this decision. So, as I say, I was going to give it to charity. That's what I wanted to do, okay? Emily did not want that money to go to charity. No matter what Amber tells you, that is not the case. And you can see it here.
Alright, so I was correct in the belief that Rachel was going to keep half the money, which is so incredibly messed up. Like, imagine flirting with someone and then promising someone half the AdSense of your video for the video that you're going to do with their story of DV, and then instead of giving them money, you're like, well, actually, no, I'm going to give it to a charity because my audience found out that I fucked up, so you're not going to get anything from that. But tee-hee, guess what? I'm keeping half the money, though. Good luck with the harassment. Ugh, God, this entire video, man. Like, it's one big shit show. And I think the worst thing about it is the fact that I'm not really sympathizing with Emily, but I can understand why she's feeling the way she is. Like, regardless of how the relationship with Amber went down, whether or not they're still dating, they're back and forth, all that other crap, imagine having a DV story, thinking that you're going to get paid for the DV story, find out that you're not going to get paid your share of the money, but then finding out the person who then went back on their promise plans on keeping their part of the money too. Not that she was going to donate the whole video AdSense to charity, but just the half that you were promised. Like, that is a double slap in the face.
Emily says, Rachel, I need to be very clear. I did not consent for my personal experience to be used for profit or public content without fair compensation. You agreed there will be a payment in connection with the video, and I participated in good faith under that understanding. Redirecting that payment elsewhere without my consent does not remove your obligation to compensate me. This video has... So I'll pause there for a second. So she doesn't want the money to go to charity. She wants the money, okay? Which, you know, cool. She's trying to make it sound here like she didn't give consent for the clip, the voice note, sorry, not the clip, the voice note, and her side of the story to be used for content without compensation. That's not true. She gave me full consent to share the voice note prior to the misunderstanding which then followed, where we changed our agreement and I said, oh, it's fine, don't worry, we'll just split this upcoming video. But that upcoming video was already in motion and I already had consent, as I said in my community post. So she's trying to make it sound here like she only let me use the voice note because I agreed to pay her. That is not what happened. She was already letting me use the voice note, and then the agreement was moved to split the money from a finance video, and we said, oh, it's okay, we'll just split this upcoming video instead, which was already existing and I already had consent for that video.
Okay, and like if you had an agreement and the agreement was changed, you should still stick by the agreement if it was changed. And again, I don't want money going to the death feeder at all, like not a single cent. But if you promise someone money for using their content or using their story, then you should follow through on your promise. You're the one that made the promise. I'm not saying that I want Emily to get money, but you made a promise and you should stick with that promise, or you should take the content down. Like, that's one of the two options.
She says, you just acknowledged that used my story, generated AdSense income, and that I've asked for it to be taken down. Continuing to keep it public while refusing payment is both unethical and a misuse of my story.
I'm sorry, but listening to a death feeder lecture someone else about ethics and morals is just peak hypocrisy. Like, it is fucking ironic. And it really just shows you how much Rachel fucked up.
If these screenshots get shared by another party and that word is not blanked out, I am going to be absolutely fucking livid, because that covered up word there is a very private, very personal thing that I do in my spare time. And if that gets out because some person doesn't know how to edit a screenshot, I am going to be, or how to respect somebody else's genuinely private matters that have got nothing to do with the internet, I will be absolutely livid. And so I just hope that whoever shares these screenshots, if they've got, because I know they're out there, if you don't cover up that word, you're just a fucking loser.
Honestly, mate, boo-hoo. Like, get over yourself. You wanted to interject yourself into this bullshit. Now you have no privacy. Congratulations. I hope the money was worth it.
Emily says, I'll be waiting for your response. And then I come out and I say this. Hi, Emily. I've genuinely been considering your request, which is true. However, I believe taking down this video will open you up to further unwanted discussion and speculation, which it did. As soon as I privated that video, she got so much shit, and so did I. Everybody was like, why are you making her take this video down? You already gave consent. That's what I was trying to avoid when I said, let's just leave it now, let's not private the video. But she wanted it privated. I say, I think it would be best for this money to go to DV victims who will benefit from it. If you still have concerns about the video being public, I'm sure YouTube has a process you can follow. Rest assured, the aforementioned donation will still be made. So that's me basically saying to her, if you want the video down, you can privacy strike it. She then says, Rachel, I need to be very clear about how wrong this is. I shared my personal story and details with you under the agreement that I would be compensated. So that is not true. I was sent her story, the screenshots, the voice note, ages and ages before any mention of money was ever made. So that is not true. Then she says, that was part of the understanding from the start. Again, not true. You assured me multiple times that I would be. I also made it clear that without that agreement, it would not be worth it for me to share something so personal and painful. That's just completely not true. You went forward, used my story publicly, then decided after the video was posted to take that agreement back. That is not acceptable. You shared private information about me under a false sense of trust and benefit. This is not about speculation or donations, it's about ethics and respect. You profited from my vulnerability and are now trying to frame it as something else. I'm asking you to take accountability and make this right. Her trying to say that this whole thing was me profiting from her vulnerability, I think is kind of wild because she's the one who wanted all of this stuff out there. That's why people speak to reaction channels, right? They want to get things out.
I mean, yes and no. Like, people go to reaction channels to get their story out there, but keeping in mind this relationship was over a year long, so there's going to be more than one story. So that doesn't mean it has to be all or nothing. She doesn't have to expose every single thing. She can just talk about specific things that what she wants to. And if you had to be less critical and you had to flirt with her and you had to promise her money in order to get stories out of her, then it's pretty obvious that she didn't want to talk about those things specifically unless she got some sort of compensation or had enough trust in that person in order to share those stories in the first place. So it's important to have a little bit more nuance than just everything needs to be spilled or nothing gets spilled. Like, there can be a middle ground.
So saying I profited from her vulnerability, I don't feel that that is an accurate characterization of what happened there.
I think it was somewhere in the middle. I don't think Rachel was planning to screw Emily over, and I don't think Emily was like, you know, this sweet innocent victim who just wanted to get her story out there. I think she thought she could probably get some money out of it and recuperate some of the loss with Amber, and it probably just didn't work out, and now she's a bit butthurt over it. So she's going to use a bit of soft power because she's the victim in the relationship with Amber as a way of trying to make Rachel feel bad.
You used my story publicly. You can still make this right quietly and respectfully. So that, I feel, is her basically trying to say, I'm not trying to make this public, let's keep it quiet. And I feel that, I felt anyway when I read that message, that was her almost threatening to go public with this.
And I'm willing to bet around this time, Rachel was like, oh fuck.
I'm not comfortable being a pawn in the mind games between the pair of you, nor am I comfortable financially compensating you for the same. I would be far more comfortable donating this money to a good cause. I see that this option is not acceptable to you, which was me trying to dig her out and be like, girl, just let the money go to charity, but she was not okay with that. I then explain, money's accrued in October 2025, are paid by YouTube in November, so there is no rush for a decision. Thank you for your patience, I'll be back in contact in due course. So it's me basically saying, just fucking let us give the money to charity, but in the meantime there's no rush anyway, so let's just leave it at that. So I wanted to give the money to charity, that was what I was trying to do, and I was saying either way there's no rush for a decision because the money doesn't get paid until November anyway.
And once again, because I feel like it's necessary to point out, just to show you how bad of a person Rachel really is, she's telling someone else, hey, let your share of the money go to charity, but I fully intend to keep my share of the money. So Emily just needs to let it fucking go, like Rachel is claiming, but she's not going to do the exact same thing.
And I say it then became clear that there was a misunderstanding, at which point I changed my mind and agreed to split this video. And if Emily wants to go there, I've got proof of all of that, but I'm not going to put myself on blast for no reason, but I can prove that if I need to.
I mean, the damage has already been done, so why not just prove it? If you have the information, throw it out there for us to see. I mean, you're all for analyzing and getting the truth, right? Like, that's what you're all about. That's what your reaction channel's about. Like, you want to dissect the information that is given. Give us information to dissect.
And then I say, but the consent for the voice note had already been given. Let's leave this here now. The money will still be donated to a domestic violence charity. I then blocked her, and that is the last thing I have ever said to her. So there it is. That's what was said between she and I. If you are angry with me for the things I've said, I understand. That's what happened. That's what I said.
Alrighty guys, this is the end of the video. There is like another 6 minutes. I watched it. There's nothing all that interesting. She goes on to talk about how the people that exposed her are in their own Discord, shit-talking her right now and making fun of her, so on, so on. Nothing that she hasn't done to other people. So, you know, if you're going to give it, you need to take it a little. Sorry, girl. That's just what it is. But we are going to end the video here. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoy and hopefully get to see lovely people in the next one. Bye-bye.